Hello again and welcome back to our course on Project 2019 Advanced. In the preceding section, we took a look at outline numbering and WBS codes, and I pointed out some of the problems with outline numbering in terms of producing a consistent and reliable way of identifying the tasks in a project and the structure of those tasks. We then created custom WBS codes, and I said the first thing we're going to do in this section is to take a look at whether the problems we encounter with outline numbers are the same with WBS codes. Well, what you're going to discover is that you still have problems, but they're at least in part slightly different problems. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to demonstrate the sort of thing that happens, but before I do, an important point to bear in mind. There is a fundamental difference between a situation where you are given codes to use and they need to be assigned to the tasks in a project in such a way that those codes never change, and the procedure whereby the tasks in a project are outline numbered in some way and that the numbering is updated as you update the structure and contents of the project. So at different times you may want either of those behaviors. Do you want your codes to be absolutely fixed once they're applied, or do you want your codes to be flexible and adaptable as the content and structure of a project changes? Well, in order to demonstrate some of the differences between the two systems that we've looked at so far, let's take a look at task 11, the lockup task. And we're also going to look at task 18 down here, the frame task. Now, lockup has an outline number of 3 and a WBS code of 003, and frame has an outline number of 4 and a WBS code of 004. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the sequence of those summary tasks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take frame and I'm going to select frame and all of its subtasks, and I'm going to drag it above lockup. Now notice that the frame is no longer outline number 4, it's outline number 3, and its subtasks are accordingly renumbered, and of course lockup has the corresponding switch the other way, so it's now numbered as 4 and the tasks are renumbered corresponding to number 4. So the outline numbering in my project has stayed consistent. So the outline numbering in my project has stayed pretty consistent. But look at the WBS codes. The WBS codes have in effect done exactly the opposite. It appears that the WBS codes have actually travelled with the moving summary task. So as far as WBS is concerned, frame is still 004 and lockup is 003. Now that actually seems to be quite encouraging, but there are certain things to be wary of, because supposing I now make the move the other way, so let me select frame again and drag it back to where it was before. Now when I drag it back to where it was before, the first problem is that by default, of course, when I, in this case, cut and paste, or if you drag it, it will assume the indentation level of the task above. So the frame task is now indented. And what I need to do is I need to go back to my task ribbon and I need to outdent that again. And you can see it's now got back to the top level and my outline numbering is 4, 4.1, so on and so forth. So everything is okay as far as the outline numbering is concerned. But if you look at the WBS codes, what happened there is something really quite strange, because frame hasn't become HP01-004. It's treated as though it's an insert into the whole project, and the numbers that are assigned are in the next available range. And if you look down at sign off at the end of the project, you'll see that that has a WBS code of HB0012. And so frame now has a 013 WBS code, as it's the next one in the sequence. So although the WBS code behavior seemed at first to be better, there are some inherent problems with this as well. One key aspect of this is that when we're dealing with either outline numbers or WBS codes, and in our case we're actually dealing with custom WBS codes, Project 2019 does do the maintenance on those codes. It does make changes to them. It uses its own internal intelligence to decide when they need to be changed and in what way they need to be changed. And sometimes what it does may not be quite what you want it to do. Now, that's not to say that you're not going to use these codes, because for most of the problems that occur, there are ways of resolving them provided you keep an eye on what's going on. So let's take it, for example, the last change that I made where I moved frame back to its summary task situation, and the WBS codes assumed a value that I didn't want. So in this case, the 013 extension. So if I right click on frame and go down to information and jump across to custom fields, you'll see there that one of the custom fields is WBS. Now I can manually change that to the value that I want to have it. So I can change it to HB01-004. So let's do that. And click on OK. And you can see now that the summary task and its subtasks have been corrected back to the values that I actually want. So in a situation where basically my WBS codes are okay, but I may have the odd change to make, the odd addition to make, and so on, I can normally make WBS codes and specifically custom WBS codes work. So it's not a case that they can't work, it's a case that A, you need to make sure that you've done as much preparation as possible before you apply and customize them, and B, you may need to make some changes to those codes as you make changes to your plan in order to compensate for anything that Project 2019 does that you don't actually want it to do. So I showed you there how to make a change to correct what might loosely be called an error in the WBS coding system, but there are other options as well. So if, for example, you've got a situation where you've got a number here that you didn't want, like 013, so let me for a moment just undo to put those frame tasks back to 013. So I don't like the way this is currently looking. I want it all to be in sequence. One of the options is if you go to the Project tab and go to the WBS drop down, you have an option for renumber. And you get the WBS renumber dialog box pop up, and you can either choose to renumber for the entire project or for selected tasks. So if you have selected tasks, you can renumber those with WBS. So I'm going to stick with entire project and watch what happens. You'll see that I get a warning. So it says you have selected WBS code renumbering for the entire project. Do you want to proceed with renumbering all the WBS codes in your project? So I'm going to click on yes. And it goes back to what is in effect renumbering according to the custom code that I've set up. So I pretty much finish up where I was in the first place. But if you have that option, then the renumber either of the whole project or of selected tasks can often give you a usable set of WBS codes again as well. However, going back to the point that I've made a couple of times already now, sometimes you just need codes that are fixed. And in this case, you need to use the codes that Project 2019 doesn't set. You need to use codes that you set and that Project 2019 leaves alone. And for that, we need to use outline codes, and that's what we're going to cover in the next section. So I will see you then.